out. There we go. I think we just fixed it, and I see it in the equalizer. So let's start this all over again. Good morning, everybody. Today is Thursday, November 20th, 2014, and this is For the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.TV. Sorry about that, guys. I've been messing around here for the last 5 minutes trying to get online. Everything was fine for the last couple hours, and then about 5 minutes ago, things started to get funky when I was trying to publish a story, and then my Skype wouldn't connect. But I believe I am here now. I'm going to double check really quick in chat, but I think I see myself moving in the equalizer. All right, so happy Thursday, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Not sure if you've been keeping your eyes on the headlines. If you watch Weather Channel, it looks like the snow apocalypse is hitting Buffalo again. Oh, my God. Actually, Pops, if you're out there, I hope you're not having a heart attack shoveling that snow. It appears that they got anywhere from 5.5 to 6 feet of snow in that first bit of storm. And then it got a little bit sunny for the afternoon yesterday, and they're getting hammered again. And it looks like it is potentially another 2 feet of snow. They could have anywhere from 7 to 9 feet of snow in like a 3-day period. Now, I got to tell you guys, I lived there most of my life. And I lived right where all that snow is hitting right now. I live probably 5 or 7 miles from there. It's not too far at all. And in my lifetime, I saw 3 storms that I would say were comparable to that. Actually, I was there for 2. One, we were actually in New Zealand, and my dad was here, and we saw Buffalo on the front page of the paper in 1977. One was right before Christmas, December. I think it was Christmas Eve, so it must have been December 24th, probably mid-90s. And then one was 1985, about third week of January, I believe. And those were like 5 feet of snow for those 2 events. And the blizzard of 77, there were like 20-foot drifts. But that snow all blew off the ice on the lake. That wasn't like snow coming down. That just all blew off of Lake Erie and landed on Buffalo with the high winds. This is absolutely unbelievable. I just can't even tell you guys like how crazy it looks to me. Yeah, and JJ brings up a good point. Good morning, JJ. I actually was talking about this earlier today, and then I saw that Al Roker was bringing this up this morning on Weather Channel. The fact is we're supposed to get up to 50 or 60 degrees this weekend, and it's going to rain. So, guys, think about this. 8 feet of snow on your roof, and then it starts to get warm and rain. I mean, that's going to be psycho heavy. And I don't think it's going to be very pretty in Buffalo. You know, plus you got all the flooding. All the storm sewers are going to be covered. And regardless of even if it gets above freezing for a day or two, that's not going to melt right away. It's going to be like a big sponge and just suck that water up. So, Buffalo, I hope you guys make it, man, by the end of the week. Oh, so anyway, I was just working on a story. And like I said, everything started hanging on me, so I didn't get to publish it yet, but I'm going to. We have talked quite a bit about California and the drought and how it's affecting, the farming. They couldn't plant a lot of crops. They had to cull a lot of the herds. Prices are starting to go up for everything, and I know that we're going to see, now that we're moving into winter very quickly, we're going to see prices go up even more. Since we will be importing everything, even more so than what we were this past year. But San Diego has come up with a solution to continue growth in their city, and that solution happens to be that they unanimously on Tuesday, City Council passed a toilet-to-tap water project. Yes, you heard me right, toilet-to-tap water. I might as well give you guys this hot off the presses, though I haven't published it yet. I will once the show is over. San Diego votes yes on toilet-to-tap recycled drinking water project. November 20, 2014. And I hate to tell you this, guys, but at some point in the future, I think we're all going to be faced with something this freaking disgusting. As Californians struggle with historic drought, San Diego has decided to take drastic measures to ensure future water independence. On Tuesday, the San Diego City Council voted unanimously in favor of a controversial toilet-to-tap project called Pure Water San Diego, which will recycle sewer water into potable drinking water. I just can't even get over how freaking disgusting. I mean, honestly, like, who the hell knows where our water comes from now? And I guess when I was a kid, I always assumed that is what they were doing with their drinking water, just kind of filtering it. And I'd actually heard, like, a long time ago that a lot of the schools were actually doing that. I don't know if that's true, so don't quote me there, but this is going to be something I think that we see more and more in the future. Let me read a little bit more of this. Despite the fact that water importation is less expensive today, analyses show that over the long term, recycling water will come down in cost and allow San Diego to be more independent and poised for growth. By 2035, the hope is for 1/3 of the city's water to be recycled. And they actually, I don't know. I don't know if I should even mess with it, but let's see if I can do this. Hold on. I had to reboot earlier today, and so it was going to kind of like blow my whole story, so I guess I might as well give it up. Maybe we'll do it on... oh, I know what to do. Hold on. Hey, hope everybody's doing all right for Thursday, too, by the way. Let me just send myself this link, and I will hook up the other Skype, and hold on. All right, I just dropped that to myself, so let me hop over here and we will get connected. Oh, well, maybe not. It appears that, wow, how messed up. My new machine that I'm trying to port everything over to that's actually plugged in with a cable, not wireless like the other one was having problems with, is having problems plugged in with a cable. It's interesting. All right, let me pull myself in because I wanted to play you guys. Wow, all these machines are on syrup. Maybe it's the snow in Buffalo. No. Oh, there we go. All right, let's see. I gotta make sure that's off too. There we go. All right, here, let's check this out.
Face of California's prolonged drought, the city of San Diego is taking a step that was once unthinkable. The city council voted last night to recycle sewer water for drinking. The project will cost $2.5 billion. San Diego currently draws 85% of its water from the Colorado River and Northern California.
So there you go. We had even a weirder echo than normal that time. I don't know what that was all about. Anyway, yeah, so it happened. Sewer water in San Diego. I got to kill this. I don't even know what the hell they're thinking. I mean, poor Nick and crew all live down there. I would be pretty disgusted over that. According to UT San Diego, which is a local publication out of there, the system, this is what they said, the system starts with microfiltration, where rows of plastic tubes and straws filter out microbes and other contaminants. Phew! The water then goes through reverse osmosis to screen out organic material. We're not going to discuss what that is. Salts and other solids. And the last step is a combination of ultraviolet light and hydrogen peroxide in a good dose to kill anything that's left. Now, I don't know about you, but despite the fact that they're filtering out organic material, I don't know if you would ever be able to get rid of that little voice that was telling you, you're drinking toilet water. Just like the dog. It's just really disgusting. And one of the things that I couldn't even get over, and this is one of the things that caught my attention, there are some of you out there that know that every once in a while on a Friday night, I'd like to have a good craft brew. And some of my favorite craft brew comes from California, namely the San Diego area. And one of the things that they note in in this local publication is that their Chamber of Commerce, here it is, the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce says that the plan gives San Diego businesses, including those in biotech and craft brewing, the confidence to expand their local operations. I never thought of that. Craft beer made with toilet water. I might have to start doing some research into the companies that I drink, because that was kind of a scary thought. So, and here's something else that I read a couple weeks ago was a story about California and the fracking industry and how they've discovered that a good number of the aquifers in California have since been contaminated with fracking water. So here we are in the middle of this epic drought in California, yet they're allowing the frackers, A, to use fresh water, and then B, to contaminate the aquifers. So, people, because you don't have any clean water anymore, now you get to drink toilet water. I mean, what is that? I don't know. That was like my one thing this morning that really got me fired up. So where do we go from here? I don't know. It's early. I actually got up early this morning. Like I said, I was trying to write a story, and then everything got foobarred. So that's about as far as I got. So back to the snow. I really didn't get a lot of snow here. I got a couple inches actually in the middle of the night last night. We got the corner end, the very tip of the spear came over Rochester, but it has since become sunny again and clear. So I'm thinking that we're out of trouble, at least for the next few days. Ferguson, I had heard last night, and everybody's been kind of following that they are talking about coming up with a ruling by the end of the week. And I guess there was some sort of agreement signed between the courts and the city, or between the police and the protesters. Somebody signed some agreement where they agreed they would give 48 hours lead time before they were going to come down with a decision. And I'm sure that's for everyone to prepare, but could make things get a lot uglier by giving them a 48-hour lead time. But they are predicting that it's potentially going to be Friday that they're going to give the announcement that it's 48 hours. So the decision might come down over the weekend. But I don't know if anyone realized this, or if anyone had read about this. This is something that I caught in passing when I was checking out the news last week. And I don't know, I kind of put it aside just because it was Ferguson, and it was the whole situation is way bigger than this one little detail. But then I didn't see anybody anywhere pick up on this. And so I put it into a story, and it actually, as of the moment, it's got 12,000 likes, over 6,000 shares since yesterday. It went crazy. UN troubled by police brutality, and the boy Brown that was killed in St. Louis, his parents testify in Geneva, Switzerland, in front of the UN, citing torture violations. I don't know if you heard about that at all. I don't know if you knew that Brown's parents went to Geneva to testify in front of the UN. But we might as well check out this one too, because I think that there is a much bigger picture going on here. Of course, the parents are saying, well, they want the world to know about what happened to their son, and I can understand that. But on the flip side, as we're seeing the UN be invoked, now this is the second situation in recent memory. The first one was Detroit's water situation. And then remember the whole UN Small Arms Treaty, which we've talked about quite a number of times. Those are three, actually, in the recent past that I could think of where the UN was trying to get involved, or it was being invoked. Another one would be in regards to the global internet management. You know, they're kind of looking at having some sort of overarching internet authority that would be governed by the UN, or at least some sort of UN rules. And we don't want the UN here, people. We don't want to be governed by a world body, right? That's what we're kind of fighting against. So despite All right, let me read this anyway. As the world awaits the grand jury decision in Ferguson, Missouri, Michael Brown's parents testified before the UN Committee Against Torture in Geneva, Switzerland on November 11, 2014, hoping to tell the world what happened to their son this past summer at the hands of Officer Darren Wilson. The Brown family submitted a report to the UN Committee asserting violations of the UN's torture treaty, of which the U.S. is a signatory. And I found the 30-page document that they submitted to the UN and testified over. The event itself in Geneva is running from November 3rd through November 28th. And this was a written statement of the police shooting of Michael Brown, and discussing some other police brutality across the nation. It says, during the meeting, the UN harshly criticized disturbing patterns of excessive force used by U.S. police, their increased militarization, and the apparent insufficiency of accountability, questioning what the U.S. is doing to stop the violations. According to thenewamerican.com, Brown's parents, Leslie McSpadden and Michael Brown Sr., asked the United Nations to arrest Officer Darren Wilson if the grand jury fails to indict him. Now, have you heard about that anywhere? They were calling on the UN to go arrest him. And I had seen something the other day, too, that the police department itself said that if he isn't indicted, they're going to put him right back to work, get him back on the police force. So you're going to see all kinds of crazy stuff. On the surface, appealing to a higher power may seem palatable to some, especially if our laws and law enforcers are providing us with injustices time and time again. But with the ever-encroaching UN interfering with nation sovereignty across the globe, should we be asking them to get involved in something that should be an internal matter within the U.S.? Yes, Jules, that is a good question. I don't think it's a good idea at all, and I think this running to the UN and crying foul is bullshit, because the UN isn't any better than our own government, and if anything, it's worse. So it's going to turn us into a socialist, needing to be babysat nation is what it's going to do. Here, there is a clip here, if I could play this too. This is from the United Nations meeting where Brown's parents were.
Today's session was marked by a silent protest. When the U.S. delegation began to address Ferguson and other civil rights cases, a group of protesters stood up, fists raised. Meanwhile, Michael Brown's parents sat and listened attentively as members of the UN Committee Against Torture had some strong words for the United States.
There are disturbing patterns of excessive force on part of police officers, especially towards African Americans and other persons of color, which seem to demonstrate that the current mechanisms of accountability are insufficient.
For its part, the U.S. delegation says the federal government is taking action.
Among the federal government's efforts in Ferguson, Missouri, are an ongoing and active criminal investigation into the fatal shooting of Michael Brown, which is separate from the local investigation and is looking at whether there were federal civil rights violations.
The UN committee also asked about what the United States is doing to stop the militarization of police. An apparent reference to the way the police responded to the protests that followed Michael Brown's death. The U.S. delegation responded saying that program is under review. The UN committee is expected to submit its report looking at the United States' compliance with the UN conventions against torture on November 28th. And under the terms of the treaty, the United States is legally obligated, a UN spokesperson tells me, to follow up on those recommendations. Meanwhile, Michael Brown's attorney says he's happy with the way the day went. He said now the world is watching to make sure what happened in Ferguson, Missouri never happens again. Erin McLaughlin, CNN, Geneva, Switzerland.
I'm back. When did that happen? I was just reading. My Skype muted itself all by itself. And I'm not even anywhere near it. So that was pretty bizarro. How long have I been off? Well, damn. Did you hear anything of my story? Anybody? Please tell me. I don't know what's going on here with the technical issues. Like I said, it started about 5 minutes before I went on air. But please let me know if you heard me read any of the story about the stock market. Do people hear me? All right. So did you hear any of my story about the stock market? Yes, no, or maybe. I'll have to wait. Maybe I'll sing to get over the 40-second delay. No, you didn't hear. What? Good 5 minutes. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So my Skype muted itself. I turned and looked when I got Wendy's message, and it was on mute, except my hand isn't anywhere near that computer. Holy crap. So just like I had to start the show over twice today, I guess I'll have to do this again. All right, we'll start from the very beginning of the story. The story is titled Ding, 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 Bong. Hold on. Because of all this happening now, I need to have some sound effects. Uno momento, por favor. The sound effects are about to commence. Wait a minute. Hey, something that's even weirder. It's not showing that I was ever even connected to UCY in my account. Wow. I must have done something bad. They might not want me to write about toilet to tap water, I'm guessing. All right, here we go. So, ding, 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 ding. Ding. And the Chinese stock market is open for business. China opens up its $4.2 trillion stock market to the world via Hong Kong. This happened on the 17th, just as QE3 a week or two ago, QE3 to infinity was ended. I don't know if anybody caught that, but I didn't see too much about it in the news. It happened very quietly, so they're pulling out the rug that's been propping up the economy as the Chinese stock market opens. The Chinese mainland is now open for business, at least in terms of its $4.2 trillion capital market. The Shanghai and Hong Kong stock exchanges are now linked, giving foreign investors access to the tightly controlled Chinese capital markets. Stock Connect debuted on November 17th, and for the first time, stocks on both markets can be traded freely, which is a major step in China's roadmap to liberalize its economy. They announced this right after the APEC summit last week, where we had Barry and Bhutan giving each other steely stares, and we were trying to normalize relations between China and Japan, which wasn't going too well either by some of the pictures. They decided to open up their own stock market so foreign investment can flow freely into China and leave more of the U.S. mainland. The landmark agreement will give international investors a lot more options. 568 Shanghai-listed stocks and 268 Hong Kong-listed companies. Foreign investors will be exempt from paying taxes on capital gains. Holy shit, people. Can you hear the big sucking sound? There it all goes. Previously, the trading of mainland Chinese stock on the Hong Kong exchange was restricted, quote, to a few qualified investors. The change was announced last April by Chinese Premier Li Keqiang as a way to increase both exchanges' standing in global finance. This should increase the scale, he said, and relevance of these markets and also improve market efficiency and the robustness of China's financial system in general, says HSBC analyst Stephen Sun, head of the China equity strategy, in a report leading up to the unveiling. A limit of $2.1 billion worth of stock can be bought on the Shanghai Exchange per day. On the opening day, that limit was reached by mid-afternoon. So they are just running with handfuls of cash to go invest in China so they could get tax-free capital gains. Man, isn't that nice? And I bet you all those platinum sponsors of that APEC conference were probably the first in line. This link may soon be expanded to the Shenzhen Stock Exchange, HSBC wrote. Chinese investors will take Hong Kong as a place to put their long-term bets. So that's why I think the long-run Hong Kong will benefit for this, said Alex Wong, an asset management director at Ample Finance in Hong Kong. Opening its markets is one of the major economic reforms China has undertaken to allow its currency to free float within the next 4 years. Yeah, so the yuan can become the international petrodollar? Possibly. Who knows? Put on a seatbelt because that is very damn interesting to me. I'm going to actually drop that one in chat. Put that in there. That was actually an RT that came out last night. Oh, yes. I don't know. Because I had to do that story over, there was probably a whole bunch more that I was going to add to that got lost in the twice translating it. But that's okay. You get the gist. I did see, too, that Obama committed us to $3 billion, billion with a B, to combat climate change. Wasn't that nice of him? The $3 billion that we have extra to just go throwing at, global warming, cooling, flooding, snowstorming, whatever it's doing. $3 billion extra dollars to go along with the trillions that we're blowing every day to go blow up people in the Middle East. Syria. I don't know. Are we giving them bombs in Ukraine yet? That was one thing, too, that got put under the rug. There was a story about a month ago, right before the election, where, and I think I even talked about this, the head of the Ukraine, the billionaire guy that got put into the position, came to us and said, hey, I need some help with these Russians that are amassing troops along the border, and I need U.S. boots on the ground. And we said, okay, we'll help you. What happened to that? Did you notice? There's no news whatsoever. And you know what? We'll take a look right now because I do have a Ukraine playlist. Let's take a look if we've dropped any U.S. boots on the ground very quietly. I know that there were exercises going on in Slovakia and maybe even Poland. Let's take a look. There were some war games too that were going on there. But I could have swore I saw that we put some sort of boots on the ground. And as we're dropping bombs into Syria and then changing our strategy to include getting rid of Assad as part of our overall overarching strategy on how to get rid of the U.S. CIA created ISIL makes it pretty damn interesting. And Putin is not a happy camper at all. And I'm not saying that any of these guys are good, but talk about an orchestrated game that they're playing here. And guess what? Everybody who's invested in the military-industrial complex is making bank. I bet a lot of those senators probably also invested in the pharmaceutical companies that are now racing to come up with a cure for Ebola, right? Q4 is going to be highly, highly profitable this year. It's going to be a happy Christmas. And I saw that we are just getting ready to come into having to fight over the budget again, playing chicken. I don't know. I'm looking at this endless list of Ukrainian videos, and it is not jumping out at me that we dropped any troops in there. But I was pretty sure. Here's one. NATO allies join Ukraine in military drill and the ceasefire holds. But that was back in September. I am pretty sure that there was something even more recent than that. And American volunteers fight for Eastern Ukraine rebels as well. But I thought they had asked us to come in and help them, and we had decided we were sending some people. I don't know. If somebody has it, they can drop it to me. But just make a note of it mentally, because like I said, there had been some news about it right before the election, just like there was all kinds of Ebola news, and then everything just got really, really quiet. Now Ferguson has been in the headlines, of course. And our attentions are distracted again. All right, one more look-see. Now, hopefully I'm still in the air. Yes, Ukraine said back on the 10th that Russians were already moving their tanks in. Their tanks. And NATO commander says that Russian troops and tanks have entered eastern Ukraine on the 12th. And I don't see anymore. I don't. No, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. The ceasefire has apparently collapsed, though. And there were tons of people killed already. I thought I saw something this morning that it was in the thousands already that have been killed in Ukraine. And this really should have been an internal issue, like I said. There's some... I'm going to tell you what else. You know how I said there's some weird stuff going on this morning? I had autoposts set up. I was doing some experimentation with trying to get autoposts to go up from a database that I had Paul build me, utilizing this tool that I found for the upcoming show. And right before the show, it appears that it went a bit haywire. I have posts from shows that aren't playing anywhere near now that just all went up to Facebook. So how cool is that? Wow, lots of malfunctions all at the same time. Kind of odd. They're also... Wait. We're going to see. The pipeline from Canada, the XL pipeline for the tar sands, is something, too, that there was just a ruling on. I guess they voted on it the other day, and they came up one vote short for approval for the XL pipeline, which, I don't know, there are lots of people saying, oh, that's a bad thing. I personally say it's a good thing. That oil is going to be running from Canada across the United States and out the other side to international interests. And, though there are some members of Congress saying it's going to create all kinds of jobs, I saw a document the other day that said that it was going to create maybe 50 jobs. So I don't know how true that is, but I am not thinking that running a pipeline across the center of our nation is necessarily a good thing. I mean, if it created millions and millions of jobs and brought the cost of oil down considerably, maybe I'd say, well, it's kind of a trade-off, but it doesn't seem like such a good idea to me. Fukushima news, we could look at this too. There was a story that came out the other day. I don't get how I still see people out there in California that are doing posts going, yay, look, there was a story that came out and just said that they found some of the cesium from Fukushima off the coast of California, but they said it's just a very tiny amount. So there's nothing to worry about. Well, let me tell you something. That disaster started almost 4 years ago, if you can even believe it, I believe, right? 2011. It's going to be 2015, so almost 4 years ago. And the concentration of radioactive isotopes is going to keep increasing in the ocean. There was a story that I published yesterday or the day before that said that they pretty much have lost any hope of containment, and the overflow where the water was seeping out, the radioactive water, is just like literally overflowing and pouring into the ocean, and it really has been doing that all along. So even though they made us believe that they're pumping it into all these barrels, there's just so much that's dumping into the ocean that it's not really making much of a difference at all anymore. But Any News came out with a story that was titled the other day, U.S. nuclear professor, quote, Fukushima is a really major event. Washington had radioactive aerosols 100,000 times normal. This was shortly after the event. A far bigger accident than we were hearing about. Models show that the West Coast was completely blacked out due to particles covering the area. And then Arnie Gunnarsson, in an interview, said that lung cancers will start increasing in the Pacific Northwest. And, you know, I have quite a number of friends up there. We have a bunch of hosts up there as well. And from everything I've been hearing from people, not from a scientific level, but at least just from their personal experience, friends and family and people that they know of, lots of people have been coming down with cancers. Now, is that just a coincidence, or does it have anything to do with them getting dosed pretty badly? I guess we'll never know. You'll always have plausible deniability, but I would say that if you were in the Pacific Northwest or on the California coastline and you don't think that you're being radiated because they told you weren't, I would definitely look a little bit deeper into that. We did a story, it must have been a few months ago already. I read the Diablo Canyon yearly report that they are required to release, and it actually had stated, like as a matter of fact, about the Fukushima radiation that they had found in the groundwater and some of the food around the area. So I don't think that there was any doubt about that. You know what I mean? I don't think that even was ever a question as far as nuclear officials are concerned. Just seems to be us that they forgot to tell and put it into writing somewhere where you can point to it and say, see, the official story says, yes, there's all kinds of radiation in the air and the groundwater. There was a very disturbing video, and actually we will look at this one because I posted this morning, I think, maybe late last night. By the way, I lit a fire underneath this Fukushima facts page. I found a couple of really good sources that I've been referencing and found a way to kind of automate the posts. So now there's at least consistent news always going up there. And it has helped fire up the traffic on that page. All right, here we go. So this is RT. They actually did a story about the radiation that was discovered just recently, the cesium that was found off the coast of Eureka, California, is where the most was. It was cesium in the ocean. But what RT points out is that there really is no agency in the U.S. that is being tasked with monitoring the levels of radioactivity. And here, we're going to listen to this. So despite anything they tell you, you know, who is really the hen that's in charge? That we don't know.
Cesium-134, a radioactive substance leaked from the Fukushima nuclear disaster 3.5 years ago, has been detected off the California coast at the level of 2 becquerels per cubic meter of water. 2 becquerels is very tiny. In fact, it's 1,000 times lower than acceptable limits in drinking water set by the Environmental Protection Agency. However, that's not the point, says the man who just reported these new findings. Ken Bissler of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute says knowing what's coming and how much is key to making sure we're safe down the road.
That number was over 10 million next to Japan in 2011. So we've gone from what were really, really high numbers near Japan, tens of millions, unprecedented, never seen in the ocean before from an accident, to levels that quickly dropped off Japan, and now 3 years later on our coastline are only a couple of those same units. My biggest concern is what's going on in Japan today and how that might, 3 years from now, make its way across to our coastlines.
Bissler returns to Japan regularly to help scientists with the continuing cleanup and containment.
And that's why we know it's still leaking, because we're measuring higher levels off Japan to this day.
It's where the need for measurements comes in, even if the initial low numbers don't strike fear into the hearts of people.
Even just, a basic question, how much radioactivity was released in Fukushima? I can't answer that today, and we may never be able to because of the lack of sampling that happened right after, particularly in the ocean.
The United States doesn't have an agency responsible for testing for radioactivity off our shores. NOAA covers the oceans, but not radioactivity. The EPA is responsible for the air we breathe and the water we drink, and the Department of Energy tests for radioactivity on land. So Bissler turned to crowdfunding.
And so far, through 400 donations, he's received the $60,000 needed to get research vessels to collect samples for him, with the help of citizen scientists at 30 points in the Pacific. Acknowledging Bissler's findings, the Tokyo Electric Power Company, which is responsible for the cleanup and decommissioning of Fukushima, released a statement reassuring the public that it's doing all it can to properly clean up and isolate contamination. But
now we know. I mean, freaking TEPCO is like the comedy of errors. Yeah, we're doing all we can. Just dumping it in the ocean. I mean, how disturbing is that? So all this time, and we knew they were lying. Oh, there's nothing to worry about. There is nobody in charge that's really checking the ocean. And we've seen report after report after report after report saying that everything is dead around there. This, to me, is highly disturbing, and it really should be waking people up.
For Bissler, TEPCO and others on the scene don't have a good reputation for communicating the numbers to the public.
Independent groups, it doesn't have to be me, but from the outside to make those studies, they should be paying for, and I would think, the independent confirmation that what they're telling people is true.
Very good. Yes, because it isn't true. And did you hear him say that we don't think we'll ever know how much radiation came out? I absolutely agree with that. I don't think that we will ever know. I mean, millions, billions, quadrillions. I saw numbers, peta something. I mean, when we first were looking at these original numbers that they were detecting and reporting, and then every time another report came out, it got higher and higher and higher. They were like petabytes or peta something. I don't even petabecquerels. They were numbers that were just completely unfathomable. And that was on a daily basis that was flowing out of there into the ocean and into the air.
And I have not seen that.
The models predict cesium levels to increase over the next 2 to 3 years.
But those models, differ by up to many months to a year, and when you might see it along your beach, along your coastline. That's not good enough. If the levels were higher, we'd be very concerned about what was going on today. So that's why we have to get out there today, even when the numbers are low. Even if you're for or against nuclear power, we need to be out there making measurements of what happened 3.5 years ago and how it's being moved across the ocean.
The monitoring will continue through the winter, with citizen scientists grabbing samples where they can, attempting to create a grid of data points spanning the Pacific Ocean on their own. In Los Angeles, Lindsay France, RT.
So there you go, people. Our government isn't going to do anything to make certain that we aren't going to be inundated with this radiation. I mean, how are we even going to stop it, even if we do detect it? But at least there's going to be somebody out there. They set up to 30 data points that they will be monitoring, and this is through crowdfunding and citizen scientists. I mean, what the hell are we paying these people for? Why isn't there somebody that's in charge of it at 3.5, almost 4 years later? How fast do we jump on an Ebola czar? A czar that has no experience with Ebola or is even a doctor, right? This is just unbelievable to me. All right, I'll drop that one into chat too, because that was a pretty good video and it exposed quite a bit. Oh, boy. I don't know. There was an earthquake, too, at some ungodly hour this morning, 5.4 off of Honshu, which is very near the reactors. Wasn't that big, but remember, we've had quite a few earthquakes there. And again, like I said, the barrier, this is quote, the barrier is not holding, unquote, at the Fukushima plant. All efforts to stop very highly radioactive liquid from flowing into the ocean has failed. So I don't think that, I know they were going to try that frozen wall. They were trying to put it into tanks and all kinds of things, and I don't think it's going too well. So I'm not sure what the next step is going to be. Libby Haleve actually did an episode. She's going to look at some stuff this week, but there was a story that came out, I believe, after she did her show that pointed out the whip situation. I don't know if anyone caught that. We had talked about the whip situation in New Mexico down in the Carlsberg Caverns. A lot of the waste that was being shipped to whip to be buried down in those caverns were coming from Los Alamos Laboratory up in northern New Mexico, and that was the waste from the Manhattan Project. They think that the accident on Valentine's Day at the WIP facility where they had the radiation leak, they weren't sure where it was coming from. Then they're like, oh, it came out of the barrel. And then they're like, oh, well, maybe we had put green kitty litter into the barrel instead of clay kitty litter, and we think that maybe that's what caused it. Well, I saw something even more disturbing about that story. Hold on one second. I'm going to scroll down and see if I can find it. Here it is. This was breaking news 3 days ago, and again, I didn't see very much press on it. Los Alamos to whip. Investigation, quote, patented explosives, unquote, are in drums of plutonium waste at the U.S. nuclear facility. So volatile, they are described as potential, quote-unquote, bombs by experts. Over 5,000 more drums are a threat. And one of the officials had said, I am appalled that we weren't told. Invisible reactions may have occurred in other containers. Now, remember, they shut down the WIP facility. So one of the reasons they started moving this waste that was sitting outside in a ditch from Los Alamos was that they had those wildfires 2 years ago that got very close to the Los Alamos facility, and they were like, uh-oh, we got plutonium sitting in barrels outside. We better do something with this. So they started shipping the shit down to WIP until they had the reaction and the fire, and then they weren't really sure. So they shut WIP down. So in the interim, they started shipping the Los Alamos waste to the Andrews Waste Facility in Southwest Texas. Well, in the Andrews Waste Facility, that facility was taking low-level nuclear waste. It was one of the very few. I believe there were two. I've seen conflicting reports. I actually saw that was the only facility in the United States that was taking low-level radioactive waste. And then I saw that there was one other facility potentially in the U.S. I think it might have been Tennessee. Don't quote me on that. But then I had read that other one was shut down, so I'm not sure. But I know it is one of the very few facilities that were taking low-level radioactive waste, while that Andrews facility on the interim basis agreed to taking that Los Alamos waste. And when I had looked into it, we discovered that there were some charges that Andrews facility was sitting over the Oligoff Aquifer. The EPA was called in by some concerned environmentalists, and there were conflicting maps that showed that, yes, the Andrews Waste Facility was over the aquifer. No, it wasn't. The EPA let it go because, a billionaire was the owner of the Andrews Waste Facility, who is since deceased now. But that Oligoff Aquifer goes under, I believe, 8 or 9 states, from Texas all the way up through north. And that's a big deal to put nuclear waste there. But even a bigger deal is that this Los Alamos waste that they were moving to this Andrews facility in the meantime, since some of it had already exploded at WIPP and WIPP had been shut down, is sitting above ground. So when a story comes out that says there may be 5,000 more drums that are a threat, and they had some sort of quote-unquote patented explosive inside of them that were described as potential quote-unquote bombs by experts, that should be very freaking disturbing. That is Manhattan Project waste. That is the most toxic waste on the planet. From the Santa Fe New Mexican, November 15, 2014, says the combination of neutralizer and wheat-based organic litter turned the waste into a potential bomb that one lab chemist later characterized as akin to plastic explosives, according to a 6-month investigation by the New Mexican. Los Alamos National Lab then shipped the waste to the Waste Isolation Pilot Plant on February 14th. The drum's lid cracked open. Temperature in the underground chamber soared to 1,600 degrees, threatening dozens of nearby drums. Documents and internal emails show the officials downplayed the dangers and withheld critical information. Now, when that leak first happened, there had been the hypersplit atmospheric model that some very astute radiation chasers had found, that someone had run, and they had shown that the airflow during that time period when the leak was going on at WIPP had taken any radiation that had been released and had floated it and circled it all around southwest Texas. So this is not cool at all. And Oklahoma, by the way. It says up to 55 more drums of waste were destabilized. The intense underground flare may have destabilized up to 55 more drums of waste near the one that ruptured, calling into question whether they too had become poised to burst. The high heat event may have dried out some of the unreacted oxidizer organic mixtures, increasing the potential for spontaneous reactions. The dehydration of the fuel oxidizer mixtures is recognized as a condition known to increase the potential reaction. And over 5,000 more waste drums are a threat. They began treating, this is Los Alamos, began treating waste with assorted varieties of organic kitty litter as early as September of 2012, spawning thousands of drums of waste that hold the same organic threat and may have mixed up to 5,665 containers. The team evaluated the effect of heat-generating events on the adjacent waste containers that could have chemically or physically changed the waste and introduced a reaction hazard. You know, it makes you wonder. Southwest Texas is a pretty hot place, as all this waste is sitting out in the open sun. Not only there, but so is New Mexico at times, especially in the summer. Nuclear waste so volatile, it has been called a potential bomb by experts. Greg Mello, former nuclear waste inspector for Los Alamos, says, quote, the drum in question was basically kind of a time bomb. I mean, guys, when I start looking at this stuff, I really, really start to get angry because there's just such an absolute, utter disregard for radiation right now. And it's anything goes, man. Hey, freaking Washington, with all that leaking waste that's just pouring out of the big holy containers underground. Again, Manhattan Project waste, the most dangerous waste on the planet, up at Hanford. Some of that waste that was being shipped as well was from Hanford down to Los Alamos and then heading over to WIPP. You know, then we find out that there was massive amounts of radiation after Fukushima first happened that also hit Washington. You know, Heidi is in Washington. It really worries me. I had actually given her a warning about Washington a long time ago. So, I don't know. I would love to go to Washington someday, but it's very scary what I see happening up there right now and along the entire West Coast. And I mean, if you take a look at some of the readings that we've seen, we obviously have gotten it all across the United States pretty much. Do we really continue on here? Oh, but wait, the U.S. is getting ready to spend $7.5 billion more dollars on nukes. You know, we just have so many more billions of dollars to open our pockets and dump out as jobless rates and homelessness are skyrocketing. People are losing equity in everything as the U.S. dollar loses its value. The Chinese open up their $4.2 trillion stock market to international investment. It's just unreal. Anything goes, guys. Anything goes. All right. I don't know. Let's take a look at some of the Before the First Cup news this morning. Did we get onto some DARPA stuff? Did we get onto something? I don't know. We'll take a look here. I don't know if any of these stories really caught my attention or got me mad. Oh, well, we could talk about this one. Again, robots taking our jobs. Yes, that has appeared in the news again. That's another thing. That's why I don't think they care with the joblessness and all the jobs going to be going to robots. We're not really needed anymore. Hey, the robots can run our jobs as they send all investment to China in the Chinese factories.
Electro, behave yourself.
Quiet, please.
They have fascinated us for decades, entertained us, and even terrified us. Today, robots are increasingly stepping out of the realm of fiction and making new inroads in the workplace, driven by faster, cheaper, and more sophisticated computing. And this expressive robot is helping lead the charge.
This is the new face of manufacturing. Meet Baxter. Now, automation is nothing new on factory floors, but Baxter is built to be working side by side with humans. Baxter, developed by Boston-based Rethink Robotics, doesn't eat, sleep, or talk back to the boss as he performs his repetitive tasks. But Baxter does, in his own way, communicate, alert and serene when working hard, and worried when anticipating manufacturing problems.
This is a way for people to be more productive because they don't have to do those really repetitive things. And any person is much more dexterous than any robot. So we can have people doing the dexterous stuff, but multiply the workforce by having robots in there with the people.
Baxter, based in Boston, made its debut recently in 2012. But further south in Pittsburgh, robots have been in the market for years. In this vast grocery warehouse, robots made by Sigrid chug calmly through chaos, helping workers restock shelves. And tug robots are used to transport food, medications, and linen through hospitals like the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center.
The tug robots may not look that sophisticated, but an array of ultrasound, infrared, and lasers mean it can navigate the hospital on its own, making its way up and down hallways and into elevators. In fact, the tug is filming me right now.
The goal is to complement workers, not replace them.
They can't touch a patient. They can't help a patient. They have no human touch. They're just merely there to do the non-value-added stuff. That's
You know what she neglects to mention, though? I've already seen the, it's called telepresence, and that's something that I'm sure you guys have all seen. It was something that, I mean, even 8 years ago, we were working on trying to sell into hospitals, which gives you an HD connection on a monitor for, you know, as they're saying this Obamacare thing, was coming into play, and they've been really trying to push this, you know, socialized national medicine. One of the big concerns was if we get the entire nation on health care, oh shit, we're not going to have enough doctors. So one of the solutions was to use this telemedicine capability, which would be to connect a doctor via sensors to clinics, let's say. He would have an HD camera, and he would be able to get instant readings of your stats, let's say, your blood pressure, your temperature, whatever, and start to do remote diagnoses. You know, for doctors who maybe need to maintain a clinic in a remote town or something, that was a solution that was being offered out there. So this woman's wrong, even though that these maybe particular robots don't have touch and they're just going from room to room like delivering pills. It doesn't mean that jobs, especially doctor and nurse jobs, cannot be replaced. And remember, there's been a thrust for quite a number of years for physician's assistants. And those are people, I mean, the physician's assistant that I used to see when I would go to the doctor and still kind of believed in the whole process, told me he had been a network engineer like me before he went to physician assistant school, and it only took him 2 years. He's like, wow, and the pay's great. And I mean, basically, you are just being like a nurse's helper at that point, but he was prescribing medication and diagnosing simple things. So, you know, don't let her fool you.
That's why I'm here.
But many fear trouble to come.
Wait, she said that. She's like, oh, he can't touch or anything. That's why I'm here. Wait, I got to rewind that.
They can't help a patient. They have no human touch. They are just merely there to do the non-value-added stuff. That's why I'm here.
But many fear trouble to come. A recent study by Oxford University says nearly 50% of current U.S. jobs are in danger from automation.
We live in a capitalist society which basically says that the more efficient you can do something, the more money you can make from it. And these companies are basically making money from replacing human jobs.
And, I mean, not only replacing human jobs, but, like, again, let's rewind to this right here. The Chinese $4.2 trillion stock market opens, and it's going to offer foreign investors tax-free capital gains. I mean, if that is not the writing on the wall, so if our manufacturing wasn't being sucked over to China before, you better freaking believe that not only is our manufacturing going to go to China, but it's going to go over to China with robots. Oh, Jesus. Here, let's finish playing this.
As a full suspension.
That view is not shared by all. Robotics pioneers like Carnegie Mellon's Red Whitaker see only benefits from automation. There is a concern that robots are going to take people's jobs.
The robots, in my own experience, have created great wealth, created many jobs, and to my knowledge, haven't taken any.
Like not so smooth.
Yeah.
You needed to go up and over.
Yeah.
That's it. I was trying to. Okay.
There you go.
My close encounter with Baxter showed that humans and robots can get along famously for now.
Beautiful.
But for some, the rise of the robots could lead to a sea change in society that we haven't even begun to anticipate.
You know, and the one thing that she didn't mention talking, I mean, this was Baxter, so he's the hospital helper robot, but they did not talk about Watson, and there were quite a number of videos a while ago on Watson. Hold on one second. Diagnoses. Hold on. Yeah, diagnoses. I have to spell. I have had more than one cup of coffee this morning. Here we go. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. Basically, IBM's artificial intelligence computer, which was the one that, who did we just hear the other day talking about? I think it was the guest that was on G. Michael's show on Tuesday, talking about us breaking the Turing test this past summer. And I did talk about that. That was the first time that they were able to use the chess computer, which was Watson, to beat a human being, outsmart a human being. And that was a big deal. That was a very big deal. But here is perspectives, and this is from 3 years ago. They were pushing this Watson on healthcare, and it's gotten way beyond this now.
In Jeopardy, built into the game is this notion of confidence, that it's not worth answering unless you're sure. And in the real world, there are lots of problems like that. You don't want your doctor to guess. You want him to have confidence in his answer before he decides to give you a treatment.
You're never going to replace a trained doctor or a nurse, but certainly a system like Watson could be a physician's assistant. It could help to check on things. Did you consider this? Did you consider that? The management of diseases is phenomenally complicated for any given, especially chronic disease. There are all sorts of nuances. You know, it's not one size fits all.
Suppose a 45-year-old guy walks in with chest pains. How are you going to decide how best to treat him, not just to treat the average 45-year-old guy with chest pains?
I'm going to stop for a second because we've also talked about the Electronic Health Record Initiative, and that's where all this is going to connect together, utilizing artificial intelligence. There's going to be everything there is to know about you in that database, including how many times you bought pizza pockets. So when you walk in, and it's interesting that they had mentioned that maybe it's not going to replace doctors or nurses, but it might replace physicians' assistants. So we could have our doctors on telepresence and then Watson as the person that when you go into the clinic, you actually sit down with a Watson telescreen and Watson talks to you and asks you questions about your condition.
Patients that are incredibly complex with what I would call, or a computer scientist would call, conditionals. All that is computable. Watson will be able to look at all of that information and answer questions about it.
Watson is very applicable to those kinds of queries, and the urgency of that, the speed of it.
20% of medical errors are diagnostic errors. And it's not that they're missed diagnoses, often they're delayed. Watson has the capacity to get the diagnosis up there sooner. Suppose you're a clinician, a doctor, a nurse trying to diagnose a very complex case. You have some ideas, but in order to confirm your hypothesis, confirm what you think is wrong, you need a lot of information. For at least 30 years, it's been humanly impossible for a physician to master all the material they need to practice at the highest level. Biomedical literature has doubled in size every 7 years, but the patients want those facts at the doctor's fingertips.
We would like some help to narrow the choices and ultimately pick the right decision. And I think in that regard, Watson is a very necessary advance.
It is the effective and efficient storage, retrieval, analysis, and use of biomedical information to improve health. At the end of the day, the goal is to improve health.
So there you go. Good old Watson is going to be your first line of defense for your health care under Obamacare. I don't know. You know, I haven't actually seen anything about Watson mentioned in regards to Obamacare, but I wouldn't doubt it. Actually, I'm looking to see if there is anything more recent. IBM Watson does have a channel, and it was active a month ago, so let me see if there was anything. I don't know. Physicians' perspectives on Watson from an Astor event. This was from 2 weeks ago. So maybe, I don't know. Let's check it out. Check it out. From October 8th, 2014.
It gives you choices, and it's confidence of the correctness of those choices by what it's learned. And that's exactly how a doctor thinks. That's exactly how a doctor thinks. What we're trying very hard to do, and we've spent the last 2+ years working on, is creating this colleague that will get the information, prioritize it, know what's out there in the medical literature, be current, and also have it in a convenient way that it's useful to a physician meeting with a patient.
Bumrungrad has a network that touches many countries, over 200 countries in the world, states, territories, and we see 1 million patient visits a year, many patients with cancer. And the opportunity for Watson to impact the outcome of these patients from Southeast Asia, from Africa, from the Middle East, from Asia, and also parts beyond is just remarkable. We're really looking forward from a humanitarian point of view to be able to have Watson, have it be part of our network, treating patients from all over the world, all over Asia, who essentially in the past have been underserved, who haven't had this available to them. haven't had the information available to them, haven't had the doctors available to them to be able to apply such a powerful tool. This tool has the opportunity to significantly improve the survival of patients with cancer.
This is envisioned as a joint Mayo-IBM effort that fuses the transformational cognitive capabilities of Watson, which we've heard about today, with Mayo's strategic goals and existing efforts of transforming our practice. So this project would ultimately facilitate the assimilation, the aggregation, the synthesis, and the user-friendly display of digitized medical information to new and established patients with multiple complex problems.
What we did in partnership with Watson is to build what I call the Oncology Expert Advisor, is simulate the expert second opinions that you just heard from Dr. Chris, and capture the knowledge that's necessary and be current and up to date. So it's a combination of live reference and its expert system. And the idea is not simply democratize the knowledge-enabled decision-making in picking the right drug. Picking the right drug is one of thousands of decisions to lead to good outcome. It had to support the entire process of managing a patient. So we really want to be that virtual advisor, the learned colleague, who isn't just there to answer your question about which drug, but is going to be there with you during the entire process taking care of the patient. And when we do that, we can democratize that, break free of the provider-centric model. So Watson is the tip of the spear.
Yeah, Watson is the tip of the spear is right. I mean, think about this. So, your doctor, right now, your doctor needs to keep up on any new improvements and some of the new treatments that are going on. But at some point, people get lazy when things are done for them. So maybe this first generation, we're still going to have doctors that are still up on everything. And, Watson might be giving suggestions, but you're still going to have an expert, a human expert that might be able to go, well, yeah, Watson, that's, how it works on paper, but, in practice, I've seen it work like this. And what's really disturbing about that is, do we want to be giving up our health care? And again, we're talking about jobs. So they mentioned physician's assistants positions. Those jobs start at like $50,000 a year. Those jobs are going to be going away with something like Watson if he becomes more efficient and he's an assistant. Now, they're talking about oncology, so you probably wouldn't have a physician's assistant in oncology. Like she said, it would be like a trusted second opinion. But again, how much do you trust IBM and an artificial intelligence machine? So, I saw a story yesterday that came out of Natural News, and I've mentioned that before. I don't really read Natural News, but the headline really caught my attention. Prescription drug vending machines now being installed on college campuses across America. Another job. I had a friend's wife who, I'm looking back when I just got out of college, so we're talking about early 90s, maybe mid 90s. A friend's wife graduated from pharmacy school, and I'm going to tell you, I've actually had a couple friends in pharmacy school. Definitely not an easy degree, and well deserved for the incomes that you get when you graduate. But back in the early to mid 90s, part-time working for like a Walmart or a CVS, you were making $40,000 a year. Okay, these are pretty high-paying jobs for a full-blown pharmacist position. Well, guess what? Now those jobs could at least partially be replaced by vending machines. I'm going to read this from Natural News. The total insanity of over-medication in America has reached new lows as Arizona State University has installed a prescription drug vending machine called InstiMeds. American college students, who are already the most over-medicated population on the planet, now have an even easier way to pollute their brains with SSRIs, antidepressants, antipsychotics, and prescription speed amphetamines, which are routinely absurded by students for final exam cram study sessions. School officials didn't specify what kind of drugs would be available in the machine, but said it would contain 50 medications that are most commonly prescribed to college students. You know, the things that you'd like to have right now to feel better, said InstyMed's Vice President Bob Bang, according to CBS News. No doubt if cocaine were somehow patented by GlaxoSmithKline, there would also be cocaine vending machines on college campuses by now, too, as marketed as a performance booster for students. I do not assign any particular blame to the InstyMed machine company, by the way. The machine looks like a competent invention to bypass the usual inefficiencies found in most pharmacy operations. Yes, and again, your bottom line, they are all public companies. The real problem with medications in America is found across the culture in the quack science, corruption, and criminality of the drug industry. The give me a pill, doc patient mindset and the quick fix mentality where people think that they can pop a pill to solve a problem. Big Pharma to sweep through universities, and this is true. Big Pharma is actually financing a lot of the medical departments in universities. Big Pharma has already infiltrated and dominated medical schools and science journals. Drug company interests also completely dominate the mainstream media and government healthcare decision makers. Now they are going to get their hooks into college campuses all across the countries where students can be trained to believe that life isn't complete without a prescription medication in their hands. These pharma drugs are so safe that students can be dosed with 3, 5, or even 10 times what we're told, and yet the drugs are so dangerous that, quote, the medication is secure in the 1,500-pound vault-like machines that have remote alarms in response to any tampering, according to ABC News. How great is that? Arizona State is the second university in America to install the prescription drug vending machine, and many more like it are in the works. Seriously, is, quote, easier access to more meds, unquote, really the answer to student health? Oh, goodness, goodness, goodness. So we're going to have drug vending machines, too. There was another story that while I was reading that I was thinking about, but it now escapes me. I'm looking to scroll here quickly to see if I catch what I was thinking about. Wait a minute. Yes, no, maybe. No, I don't see it. It was about medications, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't post it here. I thought I did, but I didn't. I don't know. You know, when I look at all this stuff, I just really think that, you know, for all these people that are sitting there cheering on technological innovation, they seem to be missing the larger picture, which is, yes, Bill Gates has even said it, that robots are going to replace our jobs. You know, when robots replace our jobs, no one will be earning. And when no one is earning, how are we going to buy our Chinese junk? Right? We won't be. Oh, but wait a minute. We won't need to, because it'll just be a utopia. Self-driving cars and smart homes that'll think for us. Yeah, that isn't the way it's going to quite work out. I don't know. I'm looking if there's anything else out here about Watson. How it works. 1 month ago, IBM Watson. Hey, let's check this one out. This, I think, is about the artificial intelligence. Oh, hold on.
Era of computing. Cognitive computing. It's a radically new kind of computing. Very different from the programmable systems that preceded it, as different as those systems were from the tabulating machines of a century ago. Conventional computing solutions, based on mathematical principles that emanate from the 1940s, are programmed based on rules and logic intended to derive mathematically precise answers, often following a rigid decision tree approach. But with today's wealth of big data and the need for more complex, evidence-based decisions, such a rigid approach often breaks or fails to keep up with available information. Cognitive computing enables people to create a profoundly new kind of value, finding answers and insights locked away in volumes of data. Whether we consider a doctor diagnosing a patient, a wealth manager advising a client on their retirement portfolio, or even a chef creating a new recipe, they need new approaches to put into context the volume of information they deal with on a daily basis in order to derive value from it. This process serves to enhance human expertise. Watson and its cognitive capabilities mirror some of the key cognitive elements of human expertise. Systems that reason about problems like a human does. When we as humans seek to understand something and to make a decision, we go through 4 key steps. First, we observe visible phenomena and bodies of evidence. Second, we draw on what we know to interpret what we're seeing, to generate hypotheses about what it means. Third, we evaluate which hypotheses are right or wrong. Finally, we decide, choosing the option that seems best and acting accordingly. Just as humans become experts by going through the process of observation, evaluation, and decision-making, cognitive systems like Watson use similar processes to reason about the information they read. Watson can also do this at massive speed and scale. So how does Watson do it? Unlike conventional approaches to computing, which can only handle neatly organized structured data, such as what is stored in a database, Watson can understand unstructured data, which is 80% of data today, all of the information that is produced primarily by humans for other humans to consume. This includes everything from literature, articles, research reports, to blogs, posts, and tweets. While structured data is governed by well-defined fields that contain well-specified information, Watson relies on natural language, which is governed by rules of grammar, context, and culture. It's implicit, ambiguous, complex, and a challenge to process. While all human language is difficult to parse, certain idioms can be particularly challenging. In English, for instance, we can feel blue because it's raining cats and dogs, while we're filling in a form someone asked us to fill out. When it comes to text, Watson doesn't just look for keyword matches or synonyms like a search engine. It actually reads and interprets text like a person. It does this by breaking down a sentence grammatically, relationally, and structurally, discerning meaning from the semantics of the written material. Watson understands context. This is very different than simple speech recognition, which is how a computer translates human speech into a set of words. Watson tries to understand the real intent of the user's language and uses that understanding to possibly extract logical responses and draw inferences to potential answers through a broad array of linguistic models and algorithms. When Watson goes to work in a particular field, it learns the language, the jargon, and the mode of thought of that domain. Take the term cancer, for instance. There are many different types of cancer, and each type has different symptoms and treatments. However, those symptoms can also be associated with diseases other than cancer. Treatments can have side effects and affect people differently depending on many factors. Watson evaluates standard of care practices and thousands of pages of literature that capture the best science in the field. And from all of that, Watson identifies the therapies that offer the best choices for the doctor to consider in their treatment of the patient. With the guidance of human experts, Watson collects the knowledge required to have literacy in a particular domain, what's called a corpus of knowledge. Collecting a corpus starts with loading the relevant body of literature into Watson. Building the corpus also requires some human intervention to cull through the information and discard anything that is out of date, poorly regarded, or immaterial to the problem domain. We refer to this as curating the content. Next, the data is pre-processed by Watson, building indices and other metadata that make working with that content more efficient. This is known as ingestion. At this time, Watson may also create a knowledge graph to assist in answering more precise questions. Now that Watson has ingested the corpus, it needs to be trained by a human expert to learn how to interpret the information. To learn the best possible responses and acquire the ability to find patterns, Watson partners with experts who train it in using an approach called machine learning. An expert will upload training data into Watson in the form of question-answer pairs that serve as ground truth. This doesn't give Watson explicit answers for every question it will receive, but rather teaches it the linguistic patterns of meaning in the domain. Once Watson has been trained on QA pairs, it continues to learn through ongoing interaction. Interactions between users and Watson are periodically reviewed by experts and fed back into the system to help Watson better interpret information. Likewise, as new information is published, Watson is updated so that it's constantly adapting to shifts in knowledge and linguistic interpretation in any given field. Watson is now ready to respond to questions about highly complex situations and quickly provide a range of potential responses and recommendations that are backed by evidence. It's also prepared to identify new insights or patterns locked away in information. From metallurgists looking for new alloys to researchers looking to develop more effective drugs, human experts are using Watson to uncover new possibilities in data and make better evidence-based decisions. Across all of these different applications, there is a common approach that Watson follows. After identifying parts of speech in a question or inquiry, it generates hypotheses. Watson then looks for evidence to support or refute the hypotheses. It scores each passage based on statistical modeling for each piece of evidence, known as weighted evidence scores. Watson estimates its confidence based on how high the response is rated during evidence scoring and ranking. In essence, Watson is able to run analytics against a body of data to glean insights, which Watson can turn into inspirations, allowing human experts to make better and more informed decisions. Across an organization, Watson scales and democratizes expertise by surfacing accurate responses and answers to an inquiry or question. Watson also accelerates expertise by surfacing a set of possibilities from a large body of data, saving valuable time. Today, Watson is revolutionizing the way we make decisions, become experts, and share expertise in fields as diverse as law, medicine, and even cooking. Further, Watson is discovering and offering answers and patterns we hadn't known existed faster than any person or group of people ever could, in ways that make a material difference every day. Most important of all, Watson learns, adapts, and keeps getting smarter. It actually gains value with age by learning from its interactions with us and from its own successes and failures, just like we do. So, now that you know how it works, how do these ideas inspire how you work? How can Watson make you a better expert? What will you do with Watson?
Watson makes me want to run away. I mean, does that not sound frightening? And he's going to be making all these decisions as he's scanning all kinds of data, structured and unstructured, and thinking about it and then weighting all of the information and then giving you his decision that, like I said, humans tend to get lazy. And what kind of an argument are you going to have against Watson? Like, let's put Watson in the seat of chief medical advisor, let's say, okay? So if you're a doctor and Watson gives you other information from what you believe is true, are you going to have any type of argument? Are you going to have any way to come up with your own treatment, or are you going to have to give the treatment that Watson suggests? I mean, I just see by taking the human component out of a lot of the stuff, unmanned aerial vehicles, we've talked about that many, many times, with the ability to use 230-point facial recognition to identify a target and eliminate it without human intervention is a problem. How is it not a problem to be giving Watson the ability to diagnose treatment for illness that then these specialists that are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in salary, now they don't have to be the specialist that they always had to be. Now they could just consult the oracle. I don't like this at all. Absolutely not. There was another story that came out, and we've read this one before, but the fact that this was in the MIT Technology Review from a few days ago, it caught my attention. I had read originally about these guys in Florida. It says, Rise of the Robot Security Guards. This is Nightscope. He is the little guy that looks like R2-D2. We had talked about him initially. He was being deployed in Florida, and I think they were going to have him scanning parking lots and doing license plates and looking for intruders. It says, as the sun set on a warm November afternoon, a quartet of 5-foot-tall 300-pound shiny white robots patrolled in front of the Building 1 on Microsoft's Silicon Valley campus, looking like a crew of slick Daleks imbued with the grace of Fred Astaire. They whirred quietly across the concrete in different directions, stopping and turning in place so as to avoid running into trash cans, walls, and other obstacles. The robots managed to appear both cute, and intimidating. This friendly but not too friendly presence is meant to serve them well in jobs like monitoring corporate and college campuses, again on the college campuses, shopping malls, and schools. Nightscope, a startup based in California, Mountain View, California, has been busy designing, building, and testing the robot known as the K5 since 2013. 7 of them have been built so far, and the company plans to deploy 4 more before the end of the year as an as-yet unnamed technology company in the area. The robots are designed to detect anomalous behavior, such as someone walking through a building at night, and report back to a remote security center. Again, just like the remote doctors, which I am going to look at the kid who is now attending school remotely with some of the same telepresence technology. We also will be able to have remote security centers. This takeaway, quote, this takes away the monstrous and sometimes dangerous work and leaves the strategic work to law enforcement or private security, depending on the application. Nightscope's co-founder and vice president of sales and marketing, Stacy Stevens, says as a K5 glides nearby. In order to do the kind of work a human security guard would normally do, the K5 uses cameras, sensors, navigational equipment, and electric motors, all packed into its dome-shaped body with a big rechargeable battery and a computer. There are 4 high-definition cameras, one on each side of the robot, a license plate recognition camera, 4 microphones, and a weather sensor, which looks like a DVD player slot for measuring barometric pressure, carbon dioxide levels, and temperature. The robot uses Wi-Fi, or a wireless data network, to communicate with each other and with people who can remotely monitor its cameras, microphones, and other sources of data. GPS and a ranging instrument helps robots find their way around the patrol area and avoid obstacles. And while they are taken to a new place, such as Microsoft's campus, where they are patrolling earlier this month, before Nightscope's co-founder, CEO William Santana Lee, spoke at the tech event, a human with a wireless controller shows the robot around to determine the area that it will patrol, and then it allows it to learn its surroundings. You give it a base map, and then it starts building from that, says Stevens. Nightscope is one of a growing number of companies using robots to help with work traditionally done by humans. See an article called How Human-Robot Teamwork Will Upend Manufacturing, and another called Smart Robots Can Now Work Right Next to Auto Workers. Or an article that talks about how it could completely replace workers altogether, how technology is destroying jobs. The trend is accelerating as robots are made ever smarter, more agile, and more adaptable to specific tasks. And yes, coming out of the MIT Technology Review, who is helping to build a lot of these autonomous type robots, they should know better than anyone. While most robots do assembly line work, Nightscope is one of the few companies betting that it could take on other tasks. Nightscope may not outright replace many security guards soon. Over 1 million of them were employed in the U.S. last year, according to an estimate from the U.S.'s Department of Labor Statistics. But estimated hourly wage for these guards was more than twice the $6.25 that Nightscope says it will charge for its robots per hour, which could tempt some companies and schools to at least try them out. So they're going to charge on an hourly basis $6.25 to have a Nightscope come patrol your area. The robots have a battery that could last 24 hours on a single charge, though the K5 is supposed to monitor its battery life and wheel over to a charging pad when it is needed. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to refuel. Oh, good thing it does not yet carry weapons. But it is not meant to be messed with. If you walk in front of it, it will stop abruptly. And if you try to detain it, after some time, its built-in alarm will begin to chirp as a warning. while sending a low-level alert to a remote monitoring center. And if you keep bothering it, an ear-piercing alarm will sound as it sends another alert, prompting an operator to use Nightscope's browser-based software to check out the status of the sensors, see what's happening, and talk to anyone who may be there harassing it. And then, of course, they could all come running if they see fit. Nightscope, the remote surveillance robot to be scanning a parking lot near you for $6.25 an hour. That is very special. There was a story about a kid, and let me see, did I put that on my page? I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I put it on the Daily Dose page. There was a kid who had to go in for surgery, and his mom quite conveniently worked for a company. Yeah, here it is. Worked for a company, and they didn't say like what she did, but I've seen these devices before. This is a telepresence type device. Cisco makes them. I'm sure there are other companies that make them, but here, we're going to play this clip.
How another teen is rolling these days, and he is literally rolling. His name is Jeffrey Kaji, and he is, as you can see there, going to class, but he's not in class. He's been attending on Long Island, New York, the last couple days thanks to a robot on wheels. His face is in the monitor. Jeffrey can see and hear what's going on in class. He can even talk to teachers and classmates. He's using it because he just had an emergency appendix surgery. Doctor is telling him to stay away from school for a while. He needs to stay home. So lucky for him, or maybe unlucky for him, his mom works for the company that makes the robot, so he's good to go, but means he still has to go to school.
I'd like to do that for this broadcast.
We will try that. Tune in tomorrow, folks. Our Facebook update is going to look a lot different.
And, you know, the thing is that these robots, like I said, for telepresence, the robots... Actually, hold on. Let me kill this connection. For telepresence, the robots look very much the same. It is an HD monitor that is mounted on a couple poles, and then underneath the poles are some wheels, and it's got GPS, and it is mapped out kind of like that K5 Dalek is, where it has like the lay of the land, the blueprint, and it can get around. And it would allow, like I've seen it in hospitals, where it would go from room to room and allow a remote physician to then meet with patients and talk to them face to face. And actually, we might be able to find one of those. Hold on. Let's do Robo Doctor. I know at one point there was a... There we go, RoboDoctor. There was a video. Yeah, Walmart. Walmart has one too? Yeah, RoboDoctor. Here we go. I knew he had one.
There's a 3-hour window for stroke patients to get emergency care to reduce the lingering effects of a brain attack.
As News 13's Jay Silter shows us in today's Health Alert, one rural hospital has turned to a robot to improve outcomes.
And this is exactly what I was talking about, telepresence. For places that don't necessarily have a doctor there on hand, this is how they were talking about trying to roll out Obamacare to not only rural areas, but to all of these citizens that didn't have health care before, that's going to overwhelm the patient-to-doctor ratio. So, you know, it's not even going to be like to the level of VA care. It's going to be the level of VA care in science fiction land eventually.
I feel like I'm a little bit too far away from it.
Otto the robot, controlled by a physician specialist in Asheville, gets in position at McDowell Hospital.
It's been a tremendous benefit for us here in the emergency department as well as the patients here in McDowell County.
Well, hi, how are you?
Doing much better.
I'm so glad to hear it.
Deneen Crane wasn't doing well 1 year ago after waking up and getting dressed with a pounding headache.
I was almost ready and my vision was off.
Given her and her tolerance for pain, when she woke me up, I know she needed to go to the hospital at that time.
Patient comes in, we arrange a very rapid CT scan of the head to determine if we can see a stroke or a hemorrhage. While we're getting that scan done, the neurologist admission is contacted, beams in on the robot, and is basically waiting when the patient returns from CT scan.
What did they find?
That I had a blood clot in the brain that had caused a stroke.
Instantly, neurologist Reed Taylor on the other end of the robot knew Deneen should not receive clot-busting medication because she's on blood thinner. Many times, though, patients do receive orders from the specialist.
The medicine is initiated here, and then they're transferred to Mission Hospital in Nashville.
Preliminary results are that we're using emergency stroke therapy better,
resulting in quicker treatment for patients with better recovery and less lingering paralysis.
Let me get out of here without making any more noise.
In Marion, Jay Siltzer, News 13.
Telling you, that's pretty cool stuff.
Yes. Well, some 60 stroke patients at McDowell Hospital have taken part in telemedicine.
And about 20 of them received clot-busting medication.
And there you go, telemedicine. That's what it's all going to be about. Our world is going to be virtualized here very soon, and it is a way of cutting costs. But coming with the way of cutting costs and ushering in the new technological revolution, it means that all kinds of skilled jobs and even unskilled jobs, like working at a drive-thru, let's say, are going to be automated. And like I said, when half of America doesn't have jobs because they've all been replaced by robots like Bill Gates talks about, how are we going to survive? How are we going to buy food or pay for a home or drive a car? They're looking at replacing all that stuff. Now, we've seen a trend for tiny homes. We've seen a trend for self-driving cars. Maybe you just have to use your smart device to call a self-driving car next time you want to go to the grocery store to buy your test tube meat. Because there's no longer cows, because there isn't enough water, because there's drought and the cows make too much CO2. It really is a scary thought when you think about how technology, though we've thought that the Buck Rogers world of the 21st century was going to be a utopia, it actually ends up being our enslavement and loss of our way of life that we've come to know and love. I wanted to see really quick Gates on jobs. Maybe this is it. Maybe. I wanted his most recent thing, and actually, no, we don't want him on Steve Jobs. Gates on robots and jobs. That's got to bring something up. Maybe I can't find him. I got a 3-minute interview, but I really don't want to go there because we're going to run out of time really, really fast. So let's we'll do this one. This is shorter. And maybe not, because it's got an ad, so we're probably going to run out of time. That's all right. The whole show pretty much was foobarred. All right, guys, make sure you stick around if you can even believe it. We made it to the end of the show. It is Thursday, so Thursday night is always all kinds of fun. Mr. Kevin Blanche is up next live. This week's Nuclear Hot Seat with Libby Hileve follows that. John Stokes, Jack Flood. We have this week's Character Matters with Mr. Dr. George Simon. The Ocelli Effect live at 6. Behind the Woodshed with Hal. This week's show, Double Cross with Drew and Chuck. And then Off-Grid Journey, calling at 11. All right, guys. Everyone have a happy Thursday. And I will catch up with you later. Take care.